It's June 25, 2025, and the House Judiciary Committee is diving into a heated debate titled Restoring Integrity and Security to the Visa Process. The topic is already a powder keg, given the Trump administration's aggressive immigration policies sweeping the country. But no one, absolutely no one, could have predicted the bombshell that was about to drop. Representative Jasmine Crockett, a Democratic firebrand from Texas, steps up to the microphone, her voice steady but laced with a razor-sharp edge. She's about to do something that will send shockwaves through the political world, leaving jaws on the floor and social media in a frenzy. She's about to call out First Lady Melania Trump, not just on her immigration history, but on something far more explosive. Allegations of a criminal past that have been whispered about for years but never laid bare like this. And when she does, Melania, watching from the gilded confines of Mar-a-Lago, reportedly loses it. This is the story of that moment, the fallout, and the questions that still linger. Buckle up, because this is going to be a wild ride. Let's set the stage. The year is 2025, and Donald Trump is back in the White House, his second term marked by a renewed focus on immigration crackdowns. ICE raids are making headlines daily. Students, activists, even U.S. citizens caught in the crossfire of what critics call a draconian deportation machine. The nation is divided, with protests erupting in cities and conservative pundits cheering the return of law and order. Against this backdrop, the House Judiciary Committee convenes to discuss visa policies, a topic that's anything but neutral in this climate. Republicans are pushing a narrative of tightening borders and rooting out fraud, while Democrats argue the administration's tactics are cruel and hypocritical. Enter Jasmine Crockett, a 44-year-old congresswoman known for her unapologetic style and viral clapbacks. She's not here to play nice. As she takes her seat, the room feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for her to unleash something unforgettable. Crockett doesn't disappoint. She starts by dismantling the Republican talking points with surgical precision. The idea that Trump and my Republican colleagues want to restore integrity and security in the visa process is actually a joke, she says, her Texas drawl cutting through the room like a knife. She paints a vivid picture of what's been happening across the country. Lawful visa holders snatched off streets, thrown into unmarked vans, their lives upended over what she calls hurt feelings from social media posts critical of the administration. Integrity, she says, her voice dripping with sarcasm, is not revoking visas because someone bruised Trump's ego. We have a thing called free speech in this country. The room shifts uncomfortably. Republican lawmakers exchange glances, some scribbling notes, others glaring. But Crockett isn't done. She's just warming up, and her next move is one for the history books. She pivots, her tone shifting from righteous indignation to something more pointed, more personal. And since we're talking about integrity, she says, pausing for effect, I'm confused as to why my Republican colleagues aren't talking about the lack of integrity when it comes to the president's family's visas. The room goes silent. You could hear a pin drop. Cameras zoom in, capturing every furrowed brow, every nervous shuffle. Crockett leans forward, her eyes locked on her colleagues across the aisle. Let me remind y'all that Melania, the First Lady, a model, and when I say model, I'm not talking about Tyra Banks, Cindy Crawford, or Naomi Campbell level, applied for and was given an EB-1 visa, what we call an Einstein visa. The words land like a grenade. An Einstein visa? The one reserved for Nobel Prize winners, Olympic medalists, and world-renowned scholars? The implication is clear. How did a Slovenian model, with a career that Crockett pointedly describes as less than iconic, secure one of the most exclusive visas in the U.S. immigration system? Let's pause here to unpack this, because the EB-1 visa is no small thing. Officially, it's for priority workers with extraordinary ability in fields like science, arts, education, business, or athletics. Think Pulitzer Prize winners, Oscar recipients, or, as Crockett put it, people who've done something significant like a Nobel Peace Prize or being an Olympic medalist. To qualify, you need to provide evidence of a major award or meet at least 3 of 10 criteria proving sustained national or international acclaim. In 2001, when Melanias, as she was then known, received her EB-1 visa, Only 5 people from her home country of Slovenia got one. 5. That's a tiny number for a visa that's already incredibly rare. Crockett's point is blunt. Melania's modeling career, while respectable, didn't exactly scream extraordinary ability on the level of a Naomi Campbell or a Cindy Crawford. So how did she get it? That's the question Crockett is dangling, and it's one that's been whispered about in political circles for years. But Crockett doesn't stop there. She goes further, hinting at something darker, something that's been the subject of tabloid rumors and late-night talk show jokes, but rarely discussed in such a public, official setting. It doesn't take an Einstein to see that the math ain't mathin' here, she says, her voice rising with a mix of humor and accusation. The phrase becomes an instant meme, lighting up social media within minutes. But then she drops the real bombshell, the one that sends this hearing into uncharted territory. And let's talk about the rumors, she says, her eyes narrowing. The whispers about Melania's past, about how she got here, about what she might have done to secure that visa. Because if we're going to talk about integrity, let's talk about all of it. The room erupts. Republican lawmakers shout objections, banging their fists on the table, while Democrats try to hide their smirks. The chair calls for order, but Crockett is undeterred. She's not naming specific crimes yet, but the implication is unmistakable. She's suggesting that Melania's path to U.S. citizenship might involve more than just a questionable visa application. Now, let's be clear. Crockett doesn't provide concrete evidence of a criminal past in this moment. She's playing a dangerous game, using innuendo to stoke speculation while staying just vague enough to avoid legal trouble. But the phrase criminal past catches fire, fueled by years of rumors about Melania's early days in the U.S. Some of these rumors stem from her modeling career, which included a nude photo shoot for GQ in 2000, before her EB-1 visa was approved. Others point to discrepancies in her immigration timeline, questions about whether she worked in the U.S. on a tourist visa before securing legal status, which would violate immigration law. And then there's the persistent chatter about her connections to powerful figures, including Donald Trump, who she met in 1998 at New York's Kit Kat Club. Could those connections have greased the wheels for her visa? Crockett doesn't say it outright, but she's planting the seed, and the public is eating it up. As the hearing continues, the tension is palpable. Alex Norast, a policy analyst from the Cato Institute, tries to lighten the mood with a quip. "I want to defend Melania real quick," he says, a grin spreading across his face. "Not everybody could marry Donald Trump, and I think that's quite an achievement. Nobody up here could have done it." The room bursts into laughter, even Crockett cracking a smile. "You sure are right," she shoots back. "I couldn't have done it." It's a moment of levity in an otherwise explosive exchange, but it does little to defuse the bomb Crockett just dropped. The cameras are still rolling, and the internet is already ablaze with clips of her remarks. Hashtags like #MathAin'tMathin and #MelaniaCriminalPast start trending on X, with users on both sides of the political spectrum weighing in. Liberals cheer Crockett's boldness, while conservatives cry foul, accusing her of slander and racism for targeting Melania, a Slovenian immigrant. Let's take a step back and look at Melania's story, because it's central to understanding why Crockett's comments hit so hard. Born Melania Novs in 1970 in Novo Mesto, Slovenia, then part of Yugoslavia, Melania grew up in modest circumstances. Her father, Victor, was a car dealer and a member of the Communist Party under Marshal Tito's regime. Her mother, Amelija, worked in a textile factory. Melania began modeling at 16, eventually moving to Paris and Milan before landing in New York in 1996. She met Donald Trump in 1998, and by 2000, she was applying for her EB-1 visa. She became a permanent resident in 2001 and a U.S. citizen in 2006, later sponsoring her parents for citizenship through a process Trump himself has criticized as chain migration. On paper, it's a classic immigrant success story, but Crockett's remarks cast a shadow over it, suggesting that Melania's visa approval might have involved favoritism or worse. The allegations of a criminal past are murky, and Crockett's decision to invoke them is a calculated risk. There's no public evidence of Melania being convicted of any crime, but the rumors have persisted for years, fueled by her husband's polarizing presence and her own reticence. Some point to reports from 2016, when the Associated Press raised questions about whether Melania worked illegally in the U.S. on a B-1/B-2 tourist visa before obtaining a work visa. Such a violation, if true, could constitute immigration fraud, though no charges were ever filed. Others speculate about her ties to modeling agencies with questionable practices or her rapid rise from modest beginnings to a high-profile visa. Crockett's genius is in tapping into these whispers without committing to specifics, letting the public's imagination fill in the gaps. It's a move straight out of the political playbook, say just enough to spark a fire, but not so much that you get burned. Back at the hearing, Republican lawmakers are furious. Representative Lance Gooden, a Texas Republican, takes to the microphone to defend Melania, calling Crockett's remarks evil and unacceptable. He argues that attacking the First Lady's immigration status is a low blow, especially given the sensitive nature of the topic. This is not about policy, he says, his voice shaking with anger. This is personal, and it's disgusting. Other Republicans echo his sentiment, accusing Crockett of deflecting from the real issue: visa fraud and national security. But Crockett doesn't back down. She doubles down, pointing out the hypocrisy of an administration that rails against immigrants, while seemingly overlooking inconsistencies in its own family's history. If we're going to talk about integrity, she says, let's talk about all of it, not just the parts that fit your narrative. The fallout is immediate. By the time the hearing wraps, clips of Crockett's remarks are everywhere. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and every corner of social media. On X, the reaction is a microcosm of America's divided soul. One user posts, Jasmine Crockett just said what we've all been thinking. How did Melania get that visa? #math ain't mathin'. Another fires back. This is a disgraceful attack on a legal immigrant who became a citizen. Crockett should be ashamed. The memes are relentless. Pictures of Melania with captions like, Einstein visa? More like Trump visa. Conservative outlets like Fox News and the New York Post slam Crockett, with headlines calling her comments vile and racist. Meanwhile, liberal outlets like HuffPost and The Root praise her for speaking truth to power, with one writer calling her the clapback queen we need right now. But what about Melania? Reports from sources close to Mar-a-Lago, admittedly unverified, paint a picture of a First Lady rattled by the public attack. Insiders claim she watched the hearing live, her usual stoic demeanor cracking as Crockett's words echoed through the room. She was furious. One source tells a tabloid, pacing around, saying it was unfair to drag her into this. Melania's silence in the days that follow only fuels the speculation. Unlike her husband, who would likely take to Truth Social to fire off a blistering response, Melania stays quiet, her team issuing a brief statement dismissing the remarks as baseless and inappropriate. But the damage is done. The phrase Melania's criminal past is now part of the public lexicon, whether there's truth to it or not. Let's dive into the social media storm, because it's here that the story takes on a life of its own. X becomes a battleground, with users dissecting every word of Crockett's speech. Some dig up old articles about Melania's immigration timeline, pointing to a 2016 report by the Washington Post that noted she received her EB-1 visa in 2001 after applying in 2000, when she was still relatively unknown as a model. Others share grainy photos from her early modeling days, including the infamous GQ shoot, captioned with snarky comments like, extraordinary ability, huh? The hashtag Melania criminal past trends for days, with thousands of posts speculating about what Crockett meant. Was she hinting at immigration fraud? Shady business dealings? Something more salacious? The lack of specifics only makes the rumors spread faster, like wildfire in a dry forest. Conservative users push back hard, accusing Crockett of hypocrisy and xenophobia. So a black congresswoman can attack an immigrant woman's legal status, and that's okay? One user posts, garnering thousands of likes. One viral post shows a side-by-side of Melania and Einstein with the caption, One of these people got an Einstein visa. Guess who? The internet, as always, is merciless. The mainstream media isn't much kinder. Outlets like the Daily Beast and Vanity Fair run stories with headlines like Melania Einstein Trump ridiculed at fiery House hearing, and Jasmine Crockett suggests Melania's visa wasn't on the up and up. They replay the clip of Crockett's remarks on loop, with pundits debating whether she went too far. Some argue she was right to call out potential hypocrisy, especially given Trump's hardline stance on immigration. Others say she crossed a line by implying criminality without evidence, risking her own credibility. On CNN, a legal analyst points out that while Crockett's comments were provocative, they're unlikely to lead to any legal action, as public figures like Melania have a high bar for proving defamation. Still, the analyst notes the political damage is real. Melania's carefully curated image as a poised, private First Lady is taking a hit. Let's talk about that image for a moment, because it's a key piece of this puzzle. Melania Trump has always been an enigma, even to her husband's most ardent supporters. Unlike previous First Ladies, she's kept a low profile, rarely speaking in public and avoiding the spotlight whenever possible. Her memoir, released in 2024, offered some insight into her life, claiming she pushed Donald to end the family separation policy during his first term. But she's been notably silent on the current wave of ICE raids, which have targeted everyone from university students to cancer patients. Critics argue her silence makes her complicit, while supporters say she's simply staying out of politics. Crockett's remarks, though, drag her into the center of the storm, forcing her to confront questions she's long avoided. Was her visa approval a case of privilege and connections? Did she bend the rules to get it? And what, if anything, does her criminal past entail? The phrase criminal past is, of course, the lightning rod here. It's worth noting that Crockett never explicitly accuses Melania of a specific crime. Her comments are carefully worded, leaning on innuendo rather than hard evidence. This is a smart move, legally speaking, but it's also a double-edged sword. By not providing specifics, she leaves room for speculation to run wild, which it does. Some online sleuths point to a 2016 lawsuit filed by Melania against a blogger who claimed she worked as an escort in the 1990s, a claim she vehemently denied and won in court. Others bring up her father's Communist Party membership in Yugoslavia, suggesting it could have raised red flags during her visa vetting. But most of the speculation centers on the EB-1 visa itself, with critics arguing that her qualifications, a modest modeling career with no major awards, don't add up. To understand why this matters, let's look at the EB-1 visa process in more detail. The U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, requires applicants to demonstrate sustained national or international acclaim through evidence like published material about their work, membership in prestigious organizations, or high earnings compared to peers. In 2018, a U.S. visa lawyer told the BBC that an experienced attorney could highlight aspects of a client's background to make them appear more qualified, even without a Nobel Prize. Melania's attorney in 2016 confirmed she self-sponsored her EB-1 application as a model of extraordinary ability, but the specifics of her application remain private. Did she meet the criteria through media coverage of her modeling? Letters of recommendation from industry insiders? Or did her relationship with a then-prominent real estate mogul play a role? We don't know, and that's exactly what Crockett is banking on. The mystery fuels the fire. As the days pass, the story refuses to die. On June 27, 2025, X is flooded with new posts, some claiming Melania is panicking or collapsing under the weight of Crockett's accusations. These claims, mostly from sensationalist YouTube channels, are likely exaggerated, but they keep the narrative alive. One video, titled "Melania Collapses After Jasmine Crockett Exposes Secret Affairs on Live TV," goes viral, despite offering no evidence of affairs or a collapse. It's clickbait, pure and simple, but it racks up millions of views, showing how hungry the public is for drama. Meanwhile, Crockett faces her own backlash. Conservative commentators accuse her of racism, arguing that targeting an immigrant woman plays into xenophobic tropes. Others attack her personally, with vile, racist comments flooding her social media. One ex-post calls her ghetto and emotional, prompting her supporters to rally in her defense, pointing out the double standard of how black women in politics are treated. Crockett, for her part, seems unfazed. In an interview with Katie Couric days after the hearing, she doubles down, saying, "We can't play footsie with Trump. If we're going to talk about integrity, let's talk about everyone, not just the people he wants to deport." She doesn't repeat the criminal past line, but she doesn't retract it either. Her supporters see this as a masterstroke, a way to keep the pressure on the Trump administration while highlighting its contradictions. Her critics, though, see it as a cheap shot, a distraction from the real issues of visa reform and border security. The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the gray. Crockett's remarks were a calculated move to spark debate, and they succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. But they also risk alienating moderates who see personal attacks as a step too far. What's fascinating is how this moment exposes the fault lines in American politics. Immigration is already a divisive issue, but Crockett's comments add a layer of personal and cultural complexity. On one hand, she's calling out what she sees as hypocrisy. A first lady who benefited from a generous visa system now tied to an administration cracking down on others. On the other, she's wading into dangerous territory by implying criminality without proof, a tactic that can backfire in a polarized climate. The fact that Melania is an immigrant herself complicates things further. Some see Crockett's attack as punching down, targeting a woman who's already a lightning rod for criticism. Others see it as punching up, holding the powerful to account. Either way, it's a reminder that in 2025, no one is safe from the political crossfire. Let's talk about the broader context, because this isn't just about Melania or Crockett, it's about the state of the nation. Trump's second term has been marked by an unrelenting focus on immigration, from executive orders targeting student visas to mass ICE raids that have sparked protests and lawsuits. The House Judiciary Committee hearing was meant to address these policies, but Crockett's remarks shifted the focus to a more personal battle. It's a microcosm of how politics works today. Policy debates quickly devolve into personal attacks, amplified by a 24/7 news cycle and a social media ecosystem that thrives on outrage. Crockett knew this when she took the microphone, and she played the game masterfully, knowing her words would dominate headlines for days. As the story unfolds, Melania's team tries to regain control. On June 28th, a spokesperson issues a second statement, calling Crockett's comments a desperate attempt to distract from the real issues facing our country. They point to Melania's legal immigration journey and her contributions as First Lady, including her work on children's issues. But the statement feels hollow to many, especially as Melania herself remains silent. Some speculate she's advised to stay quiet to avoid fueling the fire, while others wonder if she's genuinely shaken. After all, this isn't the first time her immigration history has been questioned. Similar stories surfaced during Trump's first term. But it's never been done so publicly, so brazenly on live TV. The media frenzy shows no signs of slowing. By July 1st, 2025, every major outlet has weighed in, from the New York Times to TMZ. Pundits debate whether Crockett's remarks were a brilliant political maneuver or a reckless overreach. Some point out that she's not the first to question Melania's visa. Similar concerns were raised in 2018 by The Washington Post, which noted the rarity of her EB-1 approval. Others argue that the criminal past angle is new and dangerous, a line that shouldn't have been crossed without evidence. On late-night shows, comedians have a field day, with one joking, "Melania got an Einstein visa," but the only thing she's discovered is how to avoid public appearances. The audience roars, but the laughter hides a deeper unease. In a country so divided, moments like this can feel like pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. What's next for Melania? For Crockett? For the country? The hearing may be over, but its ripples are still spreading. Crockett's comments have put a spotlight on the Trump family's immigration history, forcing a conversation about privilege, power, and accountability. Whether that conversation leads to anything substantive, new investigations, policy changes, or just more noise, remains to be seen. For now, Melania remains a silent figure, her thoughts known only to those closest to her. Crockett, meanwhile, is basking in the glow of her viral moment, even as she navigates the inevitable backlash. And the American public? We're left grappling with the same questions we always do. What's true? What's fair? And how do we move forward in a world where every word, every accusation, can spark a firestorm? As we wrap up this deep dive into one of the most explosive political moments of 2025, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found this story as gripping as I did, please consider hitting that subscribe button and giving this video a thumbs up. It helps us keep bringing you the stories that matter, the ones that spark debate and make us think. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.